Okay, morning, afternoon, depending on when you're seeing this. A bit slouched down because I'm having to use my little boy's painting easel as a whiteboard, and that's even jacked up on a couple of cushions. So I'm slouched down to try and get you to see it. So today we're going to talk about business aims and objectives. Again, my scribbles and notes are over there, and I'll keep looking over there. But before we do that, just to give you a heads up, next week, Baldwin number 2 should arrive on this planet. And so after half term, I will be on 2 weeks paternity leave. So that means that I won't be about. Not that you guys might even notice, but I will try and create some videos either this week or over half term so that there is stuff that I can chuck up while I'm away on paternity looking after my family. But anyway, aims and objectives. This is a hugely important contact area, not just at GCSE, but at A level, because what you're trying to achieve, aims and objectives, feeds into the tools that you're going to use to felicitate the succession or whatever of your business. So if you're a huge business and your aim and objective, like Coca-Cola, is essentially to get more, well, their mission, to get more people drinking Coke than water. That's a huge mission objective, and it sounds outrageous, you know. I'm not going to drink more Coca-Cola than I am going to drink water, and this is something you might want to do in your own time, your own research, but have a look at how many brands Coca-Cola owns. So when I say Coca-Cola, I don't mean just Fat Black Coke or Diet Coke. They have numerous energy drinks, water companies, fruit juices. Pretty much, if there's a market of drinks, then they're in it. And so there probably are quite a few people that do drink more Coke or Coke-orientated products than they do water. Or even if they're drinking water, they're drinking Coke water. So for a company like that, that is an achievable mission statement, overriding objective of the company. And it could be achieved. Whereas another company, that's just outrageous. So what you're going to be looking at is some shorter term, some more realistic aims. So Rich in Salt City at the moment with the pandemic, he's just aiming, or his objective is just to keep his business going. He's active on Facebook, I've talked about his social media presence. He's active on Facebook, and last week he did a flip-flop week, or whatever you call it. He didn't brand it as a flip-flop week, but he sold a load of flip-flops. The previous week, I think it was, he focused on shorts, but it involves people phoning him up, and it's very prolonged and it's not easy for the customer, which goes back to last week when we talked about added value. There's very little in the notion of added value with Rich unless you know him at this very point in time. Nobody who doesn't know Rich in Salt City is going to be actively seeking to make a purchase through a process of, you tell him that you'd like some flip-flops, he takes some pictures of some and sends them to you, you choose the one, then phone out. It's not going to work for new customers. It's existing customers that works for, and people are rallying to try and allow him to survive this period. That's his objective, that's his aim. And so if you can read it behind me, to remind you guys that 60%, overwhelmingly more than half, of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And that will be because of them not having objectives that are either realistic or achievable. And in the short term, that's what ST just stands there for. In the short term, it's stuff like survival. Maybe that's your number one aim. You've got some big companies like Ryanair, EasyJet, Virgin, the holiday companies. At this very moment, their only objective is to survive. Richard Branson pleading or asking governments to bail them out. It's not because he wants to make loads of profit, although there is a notion or an idea that whereby he's focused on shareholder value, that there's a bit of a conflict, but we'll not get into that. But a huge company asking for bailouts because they're just trying to survive. And that leads on to the second short-term objective, cash flow. They're all struggling to survive because they don't have enough cash. And so just to pay for the debt on the planes, I'm not going to go into how much we think planes are, these huge Boeings and stuff, But you're looking at hundreds of millions of pounds, and they don't initially have the cash to buy these planes, so they borrow them, and they borrow them from banks and private individuals, and they've got to pay interest like everybody else. So while the planes aren't flying, the debt is getting bigger and bigger. All these people are asking for their money back. And so Richard Branson, whoever it is, they need cash flow. They need cash to pay for things. And so one of the ways in which they've reduced that need to have cash is to either get rid of, sack, make redundant, or put staff on furlough. That's where the government are paying 80% of their income for them. And so that's how they're reducing their cash flow, or reducing the problems caused by a lack of cash flow. However, there are other companies that we'll mention in a moment about the non-financial bits, but Timpson's, the shoe people, same problems, survival, cash flow. They have furloughed pretty much all their staff. So the government's paying 80% of their wage. So those people normally would just receive that reduction in total salary, and the firms who have been employing them haven't got the problem and haven't found the cash to pay them. However, Timpson's, they are doing the furlough scheme, or furlong scheme. The government's paying 80% of their wage, but they're an ethical, they're a nice company, and so they're topping everybody's wages up, or salaries up, by that 20%. So everybody at home gets 100% of their salary, their income, their wage, while they're not working. And Timpson's say that it's costing them about 500 million per week. I think it's something like that. As a cost. That's money leaving the company with no money coming in. Why do they do it? That fits into the sort of non-financial stuff that I'll talk about at the end. So, survival, number one. Cash flow, getting money into the business so they can pay wages, bills, gas, electric, buy stock, whatever it might be. Then you can go on to the bigger, or the slightly more long-term objectives. Now, ultimately, it's going to be profit. Firms want to make a profit. Now, remember, not all firms are profit-orientated. Some organisations are altruistic. The Obamas in America, they have a charitable wing to their world, and next month or whatever it is, they're supposed to be opening another new library in New York. They're not going to get any income from it. It's just because they believe that knowledge is power, it's all that sort of stuff. That if they educate people, then those people will become better individuals, and it's a meritorious behaviour. Meritorious is more of an economic statement, but it just means that something that you do, or business or activity, is better for everybody in society. So some things are meritorious in behaviour. So you've got profit, but you've also got market share. So Lidl's and Aldi, they've been willing to charge lower prices and not make huge profits. So profit suffering, but Lidl's and Aldi are aiming for market share and sales. They want to outsell Sainsbury's, Asda, Tesco's and those companies, and ultimately capture market from them, and it's working. The supermarkets are sort of the middle ground, that a bit of something for everybody, particularly the Morrisons and the Asda and those guys have really been struggling. However, Waitrose have seen a bit of a resurgence. They've focused on higher income, posh, old people. They've got fresh sushi in store. They've differentiated, made their product different, and they're separate to that congested market. It goes to market mapping and stuff like that. They've been clever about it, and so their objective has been very costly. So lots of money to create those new stores, to update them, to make them look fresh, to put the sushi bars and all the different bits and pieces in. But it is differentiating them, making them look different from the competition. And they've actually seen their market share maintain, I think, go up a little bit, whereas everybody else is really struggling against those firms. Then obviously you've got financial security. That's linked to profit, but it's also linked to cash flow and survival. So those are the main, especially GCSE, objectives, and they fit into most or a lot of questions. Should they do advertising, or should they reduce prices? If a company's objective, it was a couple of years ago in an exam, was to create high value, good quality bikes for kids, then lower prices or lower quality materials going into those bikes is in contradiction to their objective, which was to create high quality bikes for kids. So you'd have to go with more marketing to get more customers, because otherwise you're going against your core objective. So it is important you understand that the tools that a company is going to use must be in line with their objectives. Otherwise you're going to have a conflict and it's going to confuse customers. Something in the news yesterday was Marks and Spencer's, which we know is expensive as a supermarket, but they're not known for ripping people off. They had a hand sanitizer which they brought in from another supplier when the suppliers were low and everyone was after them. And normally something that was costing £3 for half a litre, like 500 millilitres, they were charging at one point £15 for. So you can get the idea, it's sort of 3-4 times the market price normally. They then apologised for marking it as the wrong price after a short period of time and dropped the price to £11.50. Still more than twice the market price that it had been before. So that went against what everybody felt about Marks and Spencer's as in a brand they could trust. And so it's going to be interesting who knows about that and how they're going to react to that, because it's confused the customer. It went against the trust element of Marks and Spencer's, and they're one of their objectives being that. But the flip side, or not necessarily the flip side, but you can have, as I sort of said, non-financial aims and objectives. Now they're not written up there, so I'll just adjust so I can sit up again a bit better. But the sort of things that you're talking about here is, some people might run a business and have an objective of doing it just because it's a personal challenge. So it's more than money. Looking at my scribbles over here. So the personal challenge, satisfaction, simply enjoying it. So again, I've not got good examples of friends that run businesses, but a friend of mine who sold out essentially to a big surf company called Surfline, this company that predicts surf and stuff. He had his own business called Eyeball, Eyeball TV. Now that's been sucked up by Surfline, and it was one of the first guys to put webcams everywhere along the coastline. So rather than driving for an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, 4 hours if you're from London, and turning up to the beach and there's no surf, he put cameras up and made a little bit of money from this website and selling advertising and stuff. Sky News approached him several years ago, maybe a decade ago now, to say, would you be willing to share your camera footage with us so that we could put it on the weather, so we're attracting a new audience. Bless him, he was just doing this business because he enjoyed it, and he didn't reply to them, and he missed out a huge opportunity. But he did it just for the personal satisfaction. He was rubbish at business. I don't think he'd mind saying that. He didn't have the drive to make money. It was only when Surfline offered to buy him out that he took up the opportunity, because he was allowed to be part of the business still and also do all the other bits and pieces he enjoys doing in life. So personal satisfaction is a big one. It could be because of an interest. So when kids ask me, have I ever started a business, or would I start a business? I've got another little person on the way, got a mortgage, I've got a lot of risk in my life at the moment, so I'm quite risk averse. But if it was going to be, it would be an interest of mine. So, BMXing, skating, surfing, something like that. So maybe a street sports store or something. But that's because it's an interest. It wouldn't make me lots of money. It might make me enough to just survive, but it wouldn't be about profit. Rich at Salt City, he's never going to give up Salt City. His main objective, remember, is pretty much survival, and it's stressful a lot of the time, but it's because he's independent, his own boss. He always has been. Since 17, I think he started Salt City, under a different name it was then, but he's had that store since he was 17. He doesn't want to be somebody else's boss, other way around, have somebody else being his boss. He enjoys the control, the sort of flexibility of work. If he really wants to, he can close the shop on a Monday. Monday's traditionally a quiet day in shops, so it makes sense. And by doing that, you'd like to think you can work around home commitments and stuff like that. But the reality is that when you're a sole trader, a small business, it's all consuming. It takes over your life. So what you think is going to be, I'm going to start a small business because it's going to meet my objectives of spending more time at home, seeing my kids grow, that sort of stuff. It doesn't necessarily work. It contradicts with that. But other people might start a business because it's what they believe is good for society. So food banks, which I think I mentioned previously, those sorts of things, childcare, nurseries, nannies, whatever you might call it. Nannies are a bit odd, they're not quite self-employed, but you know. And they might do it because it's the morally right thing to do. So I never have any of the packaging around with me, but Bobo beards, cream and oil and stuff for my beard. They were hairdressers and stuff, and they expanded and it made sense. But their stuff's in glass jars, not plastic, so it's about reducing plastic waste in part. When their stuff comes out, the packaging is that biodegradable sort of peanut packaging. So they're doing things that they perceive to be right. So there are lots of things that business aims and objectives feeds into, but I'm just looking at my notes here. As it says here, survival in your exam period is going to be the main one. You know, especially in paper 1, which is year 10, where most of the discussion we have is about small businesses, and their 2 aims are going to be these 2. Unless you're someone like Mutiny Shaving, which is another company, you know, bloke stuff, who it seems to be primarily all about the ethics. So avoiding reusable razor blades, or single-use razor blades, sorry, reducing packaging, paper packaging, no plastic. He's even coming up with a razor blade holder handle, if you like, that is compostable. So it's like a disposable, but it's a compostable one. So it's costing them time and it's money. It goes against possibly the profit objective, which you can't see me pointing to, but it does go towards their objective is the morally right objective. You know, it's doing the right thing. But no, I'll leave that there. It's a simple unit to look at, but it's an important unit to look at. So stay safe, and hopefully you'll see another one of these videos next week. Okay, cheers.